Wait for it. Wait for it. There, right behind me at the 13-second mark of the trailer for the hit 2026 video game Grand Theft Auto 6 is one of the most mind-bogglingly detailed beaches I've ever seen in a video game. Just look at the number of people in frame. Look at the quality of the waves crashing down on the shore, not to mention the massive city in the background. I love this beach, but there's actually a beach I love even more from another Grand Theft Auto game. Check this out. Look at that. This is a beach from the hit 2001 video game Grand Theft Auto 3, the very first Grand Theft Auto game to be fully 3D. And this beach is a great example of what I like to call the forgotten atmosphere of Grand Theft Auto 3. Just look at how surreal and empty it is. It feels like being in a lucid dream, and the best part is, Grand Theft Auto 3 is full of places like this. So today, I want to take a journey across the entire game map and try to convince you why, even to this day, I don't think any other Grand Theft Auto game has quite replicated the strange beauty of Grand Theft Auto 3. We're going to be looking at 10 locations all across the map, and what better place to start this journey than all the way back at the beginning of the game. At the very start of Grand Theft Auto 3, the main character, who doesn't have a name and never speaks, escapes from a prison van, steals a car with his best friend, and drives all the way down here to a very odd apartment in a very unremarkable alley. This apartment serves as your home base for roughly the first third of the game, but unlike apartments you get in newer GTA games, this one actually serves a vital function. Coming back here is the only way to save your game. There's no autosave in this game, there's no quick save from the menu. Walking through this door is the only way to save the game, which means that no matter where you are on the map when you stop playing, you have to come all the way back to this apartment before you turn the game off, or else whatever you did during that play session won't be saved. Now, atmospherically, this alley is pretty detailed considering that it came out in 2001. You've got signage showing that it's a warehouse for a used boiler supply company. There's some decent wall textures, vents with steam coming out. It's not bad looking, even technically, but not everywhere in this game has this level of detail. For example, heading south from that apartment, we find ourselves just outside the gates of another one of my favorite spots in the game, the dog food factory. This building is not enterable. It's basically a stage prop, just a plain rectangular building with a big clear sign telling you what it's supposed to be. But without that sign, you would have literally no idea. We could switch this sign for one that says linen cleaning service or tugboat engine manufacturing, and it wouldn't be any less believable because there are no other identifying details here. Now, in some ways, this is obviously less cool than the hyper-detailed industrial areas of a game like Grand Theft Auto 5, but there is a funny benefit you get when you make your buildings look so bad. When you put a sign on a plain, low-effort building, the game has to rely on your brain to fill in the gaps for what might be going on in and around it. And that means that for every single player, their emotional association with the building is going to be just a little bit different, and it's going to be personal. It's not a huge shift, it's not like it totally changes the experience, but leaving things a little more bare like this gives the player a few more footholds for the imagination. Like reading a book, right? Books don't have any graphics at all. You just have to make up the images in your brain. And I kind of like when video games do a little bit of that as well. It's like my second favorite thing in the world. But my first favorite thing in the world is... wait for it, budgeting my money with Rocket Money. Welcome to the sponsorship. You know what I love about the app Rocket Money? I call it class. Cancel, lower, automate, set budgets, and save money. Class. So you can cancel your unwanted subscription. So if you sign up for it, if you connect your bank account, Rocket Money will just identify all of your subscriptions in a single list. And from there, you can just pick all the ones you don't want, and Rocket Money may be able to help just go cancel them for you. Rocket Money also can lower your bills. And then the things I really like about Rocket Money are these last three right here. These three are all about budgeting. Rocket Money is a fantastic budgeting app. It makes it so easy to stay on top of all of your money, and staying on top of all your money is like one of the best ways to not be stressed in your whole life. I highly recommend budgeting in general. You're not going to find a better app for that than Rocket Money. If you don't believe me, guess what? You can go to rocketmoney.com/AnyAustin to get started with Rocket Money for free. Sign up for it, give it a try. Maybe it would help. Maybe it would. Just a thought. That's how you do a Rocket Money ad. bad, and this is how you do a Grand Theft Auto 3 video. Towards the end of the first chapter of Grand Theft Auto 3, you will find yourself on the northeast corner of the map at a mansion owned by some sort of important Italian mobster. Can't remember any of these people's names. GTA 3 kind of keeps its story segments very fast and light, so you always kind of feel a little bit like an outsider to whatever gang politics are going on. Kind of a cool vibe, but it does mean I can't remember anybody's names. Now, the coolest part of this mansion is actually behind the mansion itself, where you'll find a huge yard with 3 lonely benches. These benches represent one of the most important aspects of any GTA game, spots to think about your life and feel weird in between the missions. GTA 4 had these spots, GTA 5 had these spots, GTA 3 definitely has these spots, and this is one of them. Now, as far as the mansion itself, one thing that is interesting to me about Grand Theft Auto games is how they kind of treat the world like it's disposable. There are places like this mansion that play a critical role in the story and take on a kind of energetic significance while you're there, but as soon as the game moves on to the next area, they just leave these old places behind. They don't even go out of their way to make them feel abandoned, they just literally abandon them. I like this. I like the unapologetic video game-ness of it and the fact that the game doesn't feel the need to control every little moment to ensure that you don't see anything that might break your immersion. Newer GTA games do this as well, but GTA 5 is definitely stricter in terms of how they control for stuff like this. I often think of the tutorial mission in that game where you can't even walk, 10 feet off the side of the road before it just automatically ends. Why do they do that? I mean, I know why, obviously, because people would get lost and be confused and quit. But still, I wish they didn't. They should have a toggle. They should have a smart gamer toggle that I can toggle on where it says, I'm a smart gamer. I promise I won't quit just because I get lost. Also, if you go into the mansion, one of the only truly fully modeled enterable buildings in the entire game, you can hear somebody mysteriously playing piano behind a door. It's a little Easter egg for you. Anyway, that's it for the first island in the game. Let's continue on to the next. When you first head to the second island in the game, Staunton Island, you go to an apartment complex on the water that's home to a lady named Asuka, who the Grand Theft Auto Wiki lists as the tritagonist of the game. Apparently, a tritagonist is the third most important character in a story. Like how a protagonist is the most important, this is the third most important. I'll be honest, I don't think we needed a word for this, but whatever. This apartment complex is another great example of a place that just gets left behind once the story no longer needs it. Once you've completed all the missions here, you're free to come back and jump around in the pool or just fake sit on the chairs. It's super nice, it's very odd, but my favorite detail is that the door to the apartment complex that Asuka lived in is still open just a little bit. So you can even look inside and kind of see what looks like a bed or some sort of bedroom that they reference in the cutscenes when they're trying to tell you what's happening in the game. As I said, the story, it seems very tightly written and pretty interesting if you read the summary on Wikipedia, but it actually isn't really staged in a comprehensible way in the context of the game. So all the places like these apartment buildings just end up feeling like strange memories of visiting a friend of a friend's house a long time ago, rather than firm places that you're super emotionally invested in. Not good, not bad, just a difference, right? A little ways inland from those apartment buildings, you're going to find something that I call the labyrinth alleys, and it should be immediately clear why. These alleyways are just next door to the ammunition. You can go down past this ballard here to get in there, and being in here feels like being in a strange dream. The blank high walls with the see-through newspapers blowing around and the little cutouts of the walls that don't seem to have any purpose. It wouldn't be fair to call this a maze necessarily, but it does feel like a maze when you're in it. Now, I assume places like this are just sort of an accident, or at least like an incident, right? Incidental. Just a product of the fact that when you put a bunch of buildings in a place, sometimes those buildings will have space between them, and if you don't do anything with the space, it just remains as space, empty space. And the older the game is, the weirder those empty spaces tend to be, because old games have crude geometry and big broad strokes. It reminds me of a concept that my friend Eden told me about. Eden builds wood furniture by hand. And there's this concept when you're building wood furniture, like if you're building a dresser, that you use uglier wood and you don't put any details on the back side of a dresser because it's going to be up against a wall, never to be seen by anyone. And there's no shame in doing this. In fact, you might say there's shame in wasting time, energy, and resources on something that won't ever be seen when you could just build it faster and cheaper and better for the client without bothering. In woodworking, they call these back surfaces secondary surfaces. And it's not a new concept. It's been around for as long as woodworking has, probably. Games kind of have these secondary surfaces all over the place as well. And I think this alley is a great example of one. We've had plenty of videos in the past on this channel where we've looked at these kinds of places. So if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, obviously do that so you can remember to come back and check them out. My favorite one right now is the one we did on Cyberpunk. Plenty of weird places places in that game. Anyway, we're heading all the way to the northern edge of the island to look at this next location, the Parkway. Right here, next to a weird military base where you can buy a rocket launcher, you'll see a nondescript sidewalk heading off around the corner and into the distance, sort of creating a walking parkway for people to enjoy. Here's a question for you. Where do you think this parkway ends? Like, think about it for just a second. What do you think the end of it looks like? You think it just connects to another sidewalk? Maybe it hits a wall? Or maybe it just stops in the middle of the grass? This question, among other things, is the beauty of roads and pathways like this. They start and they end. And when you're standing at the start, you don't necessarily know where they end, but you do know that they end. And I like that a lot. Walking along this pathway, there are lots of cool things to see. First, this area is great because it blocks the view of the city, meaning you're in one of the few spots in the game Grand Theft Auto 3 that feels totally secluded from Grand Theft Auto 3. And what I mean by that is, like, it's how if you have a layover at the London airport, you don't tell people you've been to London, right? The airport is like a secluded, separate spot from what we think of as the idea of London. Same thing applies here, right? This is in GTA 3, but it's not really the GTA 3 idea that you normally think about, and I really like that. There's also this incredibly steep path leading back up to the street above, serving as an alternate entrance to this little park. Another offshoot goes down to some docks that jut out into the bay, offering you yet another great place to stare out over some water and get emotional. The more of those we have, the better. And then if we follow it just a bit farther, we can see how the pathway actually ends. It just does, in the middle of the grass. You don't see this very often in real life since, the point of a paved walking path is to go from one place to another. But occasionally, if the location that the path was going to, gets demolished, you might find it. And if you have one in your city, send me a picture. I want to see it. I love paths that just stop. Pop quiz. Do you know where the beginning and the end of the nearest parkway to your house is? Think of the nearest parkway if you have one. Or just a path. Do you know where it begins? Do you know where it ends? If not, might be time to go for a walk. The last place I want to look at on Staunton Island is pretty nondescript, but it's a personal favorite of mine, Liberty Campus. The thing I like about Liberty Campus is that it's missing a lot of detail. It obviously does kind of look like a college campus, but it's so bare bones that if they didn't tell you it was a school, you might not register it just by walking through. There's a real lack of props like benches, trash cans, and light posts, and a lot of the buildings don't even have doors on them, so it ends up feeling like a cardboard college instead of an actual place, which is great. It's loosely based on the campus at Columbia University, and if you put up a side-by-side comparison, you can kind of see it. They even have a quad that you can hang out on. At least I think it's a quad. I dropped out of community college, so the word quad doesn't mean anything to me really, but I believe it just means big grass place. Like with the dog food factory from earlier, there's something fun about having a large, important institution like a college appear in a game as nothing more than just like a background prop. There's a similar feeling with there's like this big city hall building in the game, or the hospitals. Stuff like that just makes, I don't know, it makes me happy for some reason. The last island in Grand Theft Auto 3 is an island called Shoreside Vale, and the first location that I want to take a look at up here is the single-family homes. Single-family homes in open-world games are always fascinating to me, because in real cities and suburbs, they can take up huge amounts of space, but in a video game, it feels like the goal is always to make them as small as possible without breaking the illusion that you're in a real city, because these areas generally don't have anything to do. They're just places for people to live, and video games don't have human beings that need places to live, so including them is just a big boring place. This is the only area in GTA 3 with single-family homes, and it takes up about 5% of the playable map area, which is significantly less than the amount of land that's zoned for single-family homes in real New York City, at least according to this out-of-date chart from the New York Times, which puts it closer to 15%. Now, this isn't really a perfect comparison because technically this area of the game might count more as New Jersey than New York, and obviously the scale is totally messed up. This is literally 7 houses is the entire residential area, but it's neat to think about how developers choose to bend the size and scope of different neighborhoods to balance realism, immersion, and gameplay. Some of the houses here have creepy pools in the back. They all have backyards that you can hang out in for no reason. All of them are incredibly still and feel very weird, and the one all the way on the end of the block is a significant location for the final mission of the game, but at this point I've already beaten the game, so it just sits here empty and inaccessible. It's interesting to think about that, actually. You know, of the 7 houses that are here, only one of them is part of a mission. The other 6 are just empty props for you to drive by, like the background objects in a racing game, which I guess is true. Like 90% of objects in a Grand Theft Auto game are just meant to be looked at from a car, which is weird. Another video some other day. Anyway, before we get to the end of this video, I do want to throw out a few honorable mentions of places that I really love. These are places that are super cool, but probably would have overlapped a lot with things we already talked about, so I'm just going to rattle them off one at a time. Number 1. The supermarket. This supermarket is awesome. It's in a really weird, creepy corner. There's never anyone that comes here. It never looks open. It's like very difficult to access by car, which makes it feel really strange because we're used to supermarkets in real life being like the most eminently accessible places in the world, and this one isn't. Number 2, the cemetery. This cemetery is tucked away in a weird alleyway in downtown Manhattan. I don't know why. The vibes here are just crazy, and I love them. I like how flat and weird all the gravestones are, and I just really love that it's in an alley behind a church. Maybe this is real. Maybe real New York actually has this. I don't know. William, put up a picture of real New York cemetery if there is one. Number 3, the stadium. This is a giant football stadium next to the campus. It is just a big giant building, but I noticed that if you kind of jump near the entrance, you can almost see into it, even though none of the missions in the game allow you to go inside. I did eventually download a free cam mod for this game, so I was able to get a peek inside, so you can see that behind me right now. Very cool. Number 4, this is not going to surprise anyone, but it's the airport. I think I'm going to do a video all about the airports in Grand Theft Auto games soon, so I'm not going to go into detail, but just know I love this airport. And then the 5th and final honorable mention is the big giant dam. I just love giant pieces of infrastructure, especially in old games, because they're weird and creepy and flat, and they're fun to just walk around on. It feels a little bit like trespassing, and it feels like a giant waste of time to go here, and so obviously I just like walking around there. It's cool. The very last place that I want to look at in GTA 3 is here, the absolute western edge of the map. This place is huge, empty, and totally irrelevant to anything you would do during a normal playthrough of the game. In some ways, it's kind of like the flip side to the beach we looked at right at the beginning. Getting here actually feels a little bit strange because it's sort of behind a lot of the infrastructure that you're used to being around in the game. It's behind the dam, it's behind the airport, it's behind the city. There are no buildings or objects or even really any trees up here, and there's absolutely nothing to do. But the thing that's so special about this place to me is that if you come here, it means you had to choose to come here. It's the type of place that you only actually experience if you're exploring for the sake of exploring. A lot of the time that we spend with video games is focused on the destination rather than the journey, right? It's just a whole lot of quests and objectives and bosses to beat and stories to see the end of. But one of the things I like about GTA 3, and this is going to sound like a joke, but it's not. One of the things I like about it is that it's so repetitively designed and so disrespectful of the player's time that the only way to really enjoy it is to take a breath, turn on the radio in the car, and listen to Push It to the Limit for the 100th time while driving back and forth across the city hundreds and hundreds of times because you can't save without going home. And if you die in a mission, you have to start all the way back where you started and drive all the way there again. And it's only once you get into that mindset where you kind of let go that you might actually find yourself up here in a place like this, looking out over the creepy flat ocean, seeing a weird giant cloud float by, and just enjoying a little moment between yourself and this wonderful experience that a bunch of people put together for you. You know, is GTA 3 a perfect video game? Yes. Every game is perfect. All of them. I'm Annie Austin. Thanks for watching.